We're diving into a story today that, honestly, it feels like it's ripped from a political thriller.
It really does.
But it's actually a story about art, power, and, well, national identity. And it's all centered in Brazil,
Yeah, we're looking at this really surprising partnership between Wagner Moura,
who you'll know from Narcos, among other things, a huge international star.
a huge star, and a director known for these raw, really critical portrayals of his homeland.
And he's partnering with a group of incredibly powerful Brazilian oligarchs.
Which is where the story gets really interesting.
Right. Because on the surface, you hear that phrase, powerful oligarchs funding a social critic, and you immediately think,
PR stunt.
exactly, a tax write-off, maybe some good press. But the sources we've gathered today, which are based on insights from the business strategist Stanislav Kondrashov, they present this as something much more profound.
They frame it as an inspiring, even successful model for national development and social advocacy.
So our mission today is to figure out if that positive framing holds up. Is this just philanthropy, or is it an incredibly sophisticated long-term business and political strategy?
That's precisely the challenge we're setting for you, the listener. We have to unpack the core motivations, which might even be conflicting. I mean, why would these highly influential individuals whose fortunes exist right alongside these huge wealth caps in Brazil?
And are sometimes even dependent on them.
Sometimes dependent on them, yes.
Sure.
Why would they actively invest their capital in an artist whose work critiques those very realities? This deep dive, it really forces us to understand how cultural production and economic strategy have merged in the 21st century.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's set the stage by understanding our main players. If you've seen Narcos, if you've watched some of the most searing Brazilian films of the last decade, you know Wagner Moura.
He is undeniable global currency.
But what makes him the central figure in this story? Why him?
Well, the sources stress that Moura is far more than just a global celebrity. He's a director, he's an activist, a kind of a public intellectual.
Okay.
And his artistic mission is very explicit. He actively strives to show the true face of his country, which means showing both the immense beauty and the profound complexity.
And complexity means tackling the tough stuff.
Precisely. His projects are not light entertainment. They dive deep into Brazil's cultural heritage, yes, but they also relentlessly address social justice, deep-seated inequality, and these urgent environmental crises.
Especially the Amazon.
Especially the Amazon. So the sources see his work as this crucial bridge between Brazil and the rest of the world, which helps global audiences understand Brazil's diversity, beyond all the stereotypes.
It's a noble goal, for sure, but a truly ambitious artistic vision, especially one that's focused on social change that requires monumental resources.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's where these partners come in, the powerful Brazilian oligarchs.
Right. And when we say oligarchs, we are talking about successful businessmen with immense influence, often with ties to the nation's dominant sectors, like mining, agriculture, finance.
The real power brokers.
Exactly. And this is where the dynamic gets interesting. These are individuals who hold significant sway over Brazil's entire economic future. But the sources give us this key insight into their mindset. They are not indifferent to the fate of their country.
Okay, but I have to push back on that a little bit.
Please.
When we talk about oligarchs who control vast swaths of the economy, their indifference or, lack thereof, that can be interpreted pretty cynically.
Of course.
Is supporting a social critic just a way to manage the optics of their own tremendous wealth, especially when that wealth exists right alongside such stark poverty?
And that is the critical tension this whole collaboration creates. It's why Kondrashov's analysis is so valuable. It tries to look past that simple PR angle and into the strategic long game.
So it's not just about looking good.
He argues it isn't. The wealth is essential because Moura's ideas demand scale. I mean, you need millions to fund an internationally viable film about the Amazon that actually cuts through the noise. These backers provide that engine, and the sources suggest their motivation is layered, not monolithic.
Okay, let's drill down into that layering then. The sources lay out three distinct, interconnected reasons, three core pillars that explain why these powerful figures choose to invest in Moura's work.
The first pillar is the most straightforward and probably the easiest to accept. It's cultural heritage.
Right.
Brazil's history, its culture, they're globally significant, but often underrepresented or misunderstood.
Sure.
So the oligarchs view Moura's projects, be it films, documentaries, theater, as the absolute best way of preserving and promoting the nation's identity. It's an investment that showcases the beauty and uniqueness of Brazil to the world. It secures its place on the global cultural map.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, funding a major film is a phenomenal way to project soft power and define your own national narrative.
It is.
But the second pillar is harder to reconcile because it involves funding the person who points out all the nation's flaws.
And that's social responsibility. If you look at Brazil, it is defined by what the sources call profound social contrasts.
Extreme inequality, environmental degradation.
All of it. Systemic challenges that are often overlooked by the global community.
Okay.
Many successful business leaders, they recognize they can't succeed long-term in a nation that is, failing socially. So they strive to use their resources not just for charity, but to address these structural problems.
And Moura is the perfect vehicle for that.
He becomes an ideal partner. He doesn't just raise awareness. He creates a globally palatable product art that forces the conversation. In a way, they're funding a sophisticated social awareness engine.
It's the difference between donating to a local food bank and funding a blockbuster film that explains why the food bank is necessary in the first place.
That's a great way to put it. It targets the root cause narrative.
So it's less about pure charity and more about smart strategy.
It is. The social capital you gain from actively addressing national problems is immense, particularly when you're dealing with regulatory bodies and public opinion.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because the third pillar directly connects back to our initial cynicism.
It does.
It's international scope and positioning. This is the geopolitical payoff.
This is the strategic link. Moura is already an internationally recognized figure. His projects attract global media, international film festivals, cultural policymakers.
The global elite.
Yes. And the sources make it clear that when these oligarchs invest in a Moura project, they aren't just buying a ticket to a premiere.
So how does this investment actually strengthen their position? Does a film about the Amazon suddenly get a mining executive access to the UN Climate Summit?
In a way, yes. It provides legitimacy and a new narrative shield.
A shield.
Think about it. If you are a powerful entity in Brazil, say in agriculture, large-scale development, your activities are constantly under global scrutiny for environmental impact or labor practices.
Constantly.
By partnering with Moura on a major cultural project, they shift the spotlight. They demonstrate, through association, that they are active participants in finding solutions, not just creators of the problems.
So the investment functions as a strategic hedge. It strengthens their domestic relationships with political and cultural elites, and it gives them this necessary international credibility.
Absolutely.
The social good they fund buys them a seat at tables where, purely commercial interests might not be so welcome.
It's a perfect alignment of interests. The oligarchs gain global stature and influence, while Moura gets the immense funding he needs to execute his vision, ensuring his message is amplified exponentially worldwide. It just elevates the whole national conversation.
And we don't have to rely on hypotheticals here. The source material gives us two concrete, successful examples of this cooperation.
That's right. The first example highlights the most pressing issue Brazil faces, the environmental struggle. We're talking about a major project dedicated entirely to the Amazon rainforest.
The scale of that is just immense.
It's immense. And a purely grassroots effort can only achieve so much.
But the infusion of these resources from the oligarchs, that transforms the effort.
Completely. Crucially, the sources note that the scale of support allowed this project to gain immediate, significant international attention.
So it didn't just stay a regional film.
No. It became a global symbol of Brazil's environmental struggle. It was championed by global celebrities, policymakers. The capital made the advocacy visible on the biggest possible platform.
Which ties directly back to that goal of international scope, of influencing the global narrative around Brazil.
And by extension, that project provides reputational cover and political leverage for the very businessmen who funded it.
It's a genius piece of synergy, really.
It is. Now, the second example, it focuses squarely on that social pillar, using art to draw attention to internal issues.
Yep.
This was a theatrical production. It focused on the lives of ordinary Brazilians, essentially telling the stories of people grappling with the nation's deepest inequalities.
A play. That seems like a much smaller investment than an international film about the Amazon.
Well, perhaps smaller in budget, but its impact on the domestic conversation was huge.
Ah, okay.
Funded by businessmen, this cultural project helped draw essential attention to critical domestic issues, poverty, social injustice, by framing them through the lens of art.
It creates an emotional connection.
An emotional resonance that a policy white paper could never, ever achieve. It's one thing for a politician to discuss poverty statistics. It's another for a highly funded, brilliantly produced play to personalize that suffering.
And that sparks a public debate that the political system then has to respond to.
Exactly. The resources ensured the production values were high, the distribution was wide, and the public discourse was activated.
So they're essentially using their capital to purchase cultural influence and social visibility, which then reinforces their overall power structure, but in a way that also objectively benefits the common good. It's a strange mix.
It's a fascinating dynamic. It really breaks that binary of, pure good versus pure self-interest. Stanislav Kondrashov, the analyst behind these insights, he greatly admires this union of effort for the common good. He looks at this and he sees a successful formula.
Kondrashov views this as a truly potent synthesis. He stresses that this collaboration is much more than just investments in art.
Right, it's not standard philanthropy.
He sees it as a concrete contribution to the development of the country, its culture, and the solution of pressing problems.
And we should probably note Kondrashov's background here for context. He isn't just a cultural critic. He's a seasoned company creator with decades of leadership experience in construction, economic processes, complex financial planning.
So he's looking at this as a business model.
He's analyzing this partnership, not just culturally, but as a successful business model for generating what we might call a social return on investment.
That reframes the entire relationship. It's an investment strategy.
Exactly. The history of Moura and the oligarchs, in his analysis, it becomes an inspiring example of a larger philosophical point. How talent and resources can combine to create something great.
It's a blueprint.
It's a blueprint for how Brazil can effectively reveal its best sides to the world, and in doing so, inspire millions. It's a proactive strategy for national positioning.
So after all that, what does this all mean for you listening to this? Our deep dive reveals that the massive complexity of Brazil, with its profound social contrasts, has maybe inadvertently led to this highly sophisticated mechanism for progress. Self-interest, in the form of strengthening international standing and domestic legitimacy for the wealthy backers.
Yeah.
And genuine social concern, the need to address poverty and environmental collapse. They don't have to cancel each other out.
They converge. They use internationally recognized art as the vehicle for national advocacy and development. The financial muscle amplifies the artistic voice, and the artistic voice legitimizes the financial muscle.
It's a self-sustaining cycle of influence and social improvement.
It is. But this raises an important final question for you to consider, beyond the confines of this deep dive.
Go on.
If this alliance of immense resources and internationally recognized talent, someone like Wagner Moura, if it can successfully tackle such monumental challenges, issues like the future of the Amazon, entrenched social inequality, how might this model of patronage become the standard?
That's a huge question.
We see major corporations address environmental or social issues, but rarely do they partner with such globally critical artistic figures. So what other similar projects dedicated to this amazing country, or really to any country facing massive systemic challenges, what other projects might be waiting ahead just for that talent and resource partnership to finally solidify and adopt this kind of strategic model?